Good evening. I'm Father Russ Carmichael, and this is Street Talk. And tonight I got a great show for you, wherever you're seeing, whether it's tonight, afternoon, or we're all over the place now. But I got a great show, okay? Across from me is my co-host, Dominic. But I got a lady, model, athlete, a very serious competitor, an attorney, okay? And what a name. She's got a great name. Okay, it's Themis.
Go ahead, you're gonna get it.
I got it. Klarides, okay? She's worried about it, right? But I know, because I always say, what's in a name? Well, she's got this great name that Themis, that obviously is representative of the natural and moral order. Okay, that's what the Greek gods say. That's what your name represents.
And the goddess of justice.
And the goddess of justice. You got that down. And that's what you do, okay? Senator, minority leader, all right? House minority. Yeah, right.
Love him, but I don't want to be him.
But you don't want to be him, right? And done a lot of great work this year. I'm really glad that I got you on the show.
Happy to be here.
And of course, you got a dirty Democrat sitting here across from.
Just found that out.
He kept it secret.
Apparently, he did.
That's how I get people on the show. You didn't know that?
All my Democrats say, "How are you getting these Republicans on the show?" I said, "I send Dominic out." I said, "They don't realize who it is until they get on."
Lie by omission.
Right, but boy, let's. You and I were just talking a little bit. You have had fire up there. Well, not really fire, because you guys have been put out. I mean, my good friend, Danny Boy, is basically not let you guys at the table. Is that right or not?
Well, what's interesting is that, just so people understand, the way the budget process works, the governor puts out his or her budget in February at some point, and then the majority party, which is the Democrats at this point, put out their budget April at some point, and we, the Republicans in the House and Senate, put out our budget. So there's 3 budgets out there, and the idea, in fact, the perfect idea for the citizens of the state of Connecticut who vote for everyone, is that we all sit down and we share our ideas and we try and figure out what is the best combination of those ideas to move the state forward. Unfortunately, this year, that did not happen. In fact, Republicans represent over 40% of the people of the state of Connecticut, and we were not even asked to come into the room.
That is a horrible situation when you got the conditions with people leaving the state, businesses leaving the state, jobs. There's been no replacement of jobs in 20 years. We've lost all kinds of jobs. What do? We
help businesses thrive in this state. I mean, I would be happy right now if we would just not push them out. I always say we hold up a sign at the state of Connecticut borders that say, "Get out." Because everything we do, every policy we make that regards business in any way, shape, or form is against them. And this isn't about protecting business versus, other people that need things. Of course, it's our job as legislators, and the governor for that matter, is to do what's best for the state and take care of people's needs while doing it in a fiscally responsible way. But the government cannot create jobs. Only businesses can create jobs. I mean, we are known as the 48th, 49th, 50th state in every survey, in every discussion, being business, anti-business. We are an anti-business state. And it's not even a gray area. We are 48th, 49th, 50th in a list of 1 through 50. Who wants to come here?
Well, that's the question. How do you bring him here? I mean, he's over there, or he went, I don't know if he's over there yet.
France.
He's over in France, playing over there, and how is he selling this stuff? I mean, that's what I don't understand. You got businesses wanting to leave. All people I know that are in small business talking about they can't make it here and everything else. What are the Republicans going to do different? I mean, that's, how do you keep people here, and what do you do? That becomes the real rubber hits the road kind of thing, right?
Of course it does, and those are very good questions. And what we did, as we've done for the past 8 years in the House and Senate Republicans, is we put together our own budget. And the governor asked time after time after time, write down your ideas. In fact, one time he actually asked us to write them on the back of an envelope. Mm-hmm. And that's what resulted in in a little lunch that he and I had.
You had a luncheon.
But we
right?
did. And whether you agree with the ideas or not, there is an office in our building in the state capitol called the Office of Fiscal Analysis. And they're a nonpartisan budgetary financial office. So they do all the numbers,
right.
to simplify it.
Right.
And what they do is they'll tell you is, here's a budget. We give it to them and we say, can you take a look at it? Is it balanced? Is it vetted properly? Are all the numbers in place, in other words?
Right.
Not whether we like them or we don't like them, but are all the numbers properly in place? And with the governor's budget, the Democrats' budget, and our budget, there was only one budget of those three that was not in place properly, and that was the governor's, because he put a budget together and then he found out that due to some odd numbers,
right,
that it was not in balance.
Exactly.
It was not, he was over the cap. And so his answer was, well, you guys deal with it, it's not my problem now. But having said that, to answer your question, we put a budget together that had no tax increases. But it was very important to me and Senator Fasano that having the goal be no tax increases was not just for the sake of no tax increases. We didn't want to hurt people of the state just to say we're not raising taxes. So what we did was we changed policies. We put more money and more investment in our transportation in this state than has been put in many, many years. We took people off the DDS wait list, people that need it, people that have, adults and children, and people that sit there and wait day after day in hopes they're going to get a call that they can take their child off that list. We took people off that list. We gave nonprofit providers that help us in all our communities, who do their jobs in social services better than the state does. We gave them increases. We helped with hospital provider tax. We rejiggered, for lack of a better term, the hospital tax that was supposed to be, you give us more money and then we'll give you the money back. Never happened that way.
Didn't they try that with nursing homes a number of years ago?
It never works. Never works.
I seem to remember.
You can start with the income tax with Governor Weicker. No tax ever goes away. Just remember that. And nothing. When you ever tell people, whether it's the hospitals, now the cities and towns, listen, you give me your money, and I'll give it back to you in another way. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
Never going to happen.
It never works.
I know one of the conversations, obviously I did this on Facebook, I had with Senator Markley. He's a little bit more conservative than a lot of other people are, but one of the things I pointed out to him, because he was around at the time that the income tax was put in back in 91. And the years before that, in 86, 87, 88, 89, I know 88 and 89, there was probably about a 30% increase in spending that was put out prior to the tax. Then the recession hit, and then they were lost with what to do. So they did put in this the income tax, and at the time I think it was around 1.5%, and now we're up to 5. And somewhere along the lines, I seem to remember that, when I pay my taxes, I used to get a $700 credit against them for all my property taxes and other things along those lines. And I know we're talking about changing around the budget so that people in cities can have money back from their motor vehicle taxes and other things, and kind of changing the way the whole system works. But it seems to me it worked a lot better when you were giving us the $700 instead of the $3, I think it's down to $2 now, that we get for paying our real estate taxes. And I think that was kind of the way that the system was designed in order to be able to offset some of those things along those lines. But the way I look at this now is, it's a mess. The question that I really have is, when they put the income tax in, there's supposed to be a budget cap, which basically says that we can't grow more than what everybody's income goes up. So if everybody's income goes up 3%, the budget can go up 3%. But what is the budget cap? Because I listen to Rob Kane sit in appropriations and talk about the guy up on the 5th floor who supposedly understands what the budget cap is and how it's really supposed to work. Because I look at that, you can't really pass a $2 million tax if you have a budget cap in place which says, okay, the rate of growth was 1.5% or even that, that's what our budget should be in line with. I guess that was the way that it was proposed, that this whole system was to be able to be kept in line, and you're not just feeding the monster all the time, every time, and asking for more tax increases. So I guess, what is the budget gap? Because not a lot of people seem to know, and I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about it.
What happened is I wasn't there then, but my understanding
Yes.
is after the income tax was passed, there was such an outrage, understandably so, that they decided to put a constitutional spending cap on the ballot, which means, we can't change our constitution, obviously, unless all the voters of the state of Connecticut vote for it, and it passes by a certain amount in a general election. That passed, and I believe that number was in the high 70%. So people resoundingly agreed with that. And what that says is, and you are right, it's complicated in a certain way, but to oversimplify it, it's basically saying based on how much our budget grows versus how much people's income grow, the greater or the lesser of one of the two is the percentage by which our budget can grow. And we're kept to that. Now, part of the problem with that spending cap, which we now have, is we never codified it, which means it is part of the Constitution, but it's not in our statute. Okay, and we as Republicans have tried year after year to codify it because we need people to understand, because each legislature changes every 2 years with an election, so there's different governors, there's different legislators, the composition is different, so people have to understand the things that actually go under that spending cap, and because it's never been codified. This year, there has been a little play with that budget cap, and they're taking pension payments and retirement benefits and things that are never supposed to be. They're supposed to be in that cap, out of it. So if you have a whole pool of things that are in the budget cap, then you have to pay. You can only increase your spending by this much. But if you remove things from the cap and put them over there for a second, right, then that pool gets smaller, so you can add your own things to it. And that's what happened this year. So we did that a few years ago, actually, under Governor Rell. The difference under Governor Rell was that we had a close to $1 billion surplus. So we had money to spend, and it was a big education reform. And so this year, and that has to be voted on by the legislature, by the way, even when you do it. I believe it's a 3/5 vote that has to pass. And we did it at that point, and that's the way it's supposed to be done. That wasn't done this year, and we have a $3 billion deficit. So big difference between the two of them.
And some of the problems, I look at them, they get very structural. And I guess the reason being is obviously we don't gain jobs back as quick as the rest of the country does, number one. So right off the bat, you're at a loss.
We also go into recessions later too.
Yeah. With the revenue, and I remember this, from the '90s, that it took us 8, 9, 10 years to gain back a lot of the jobs that we lost in the 1990s recession. We go in a little bit later, but it takes us a lot longer to get out. So I guess my point is structurally we need to change some of these things so that we're not going in and out of this every couple of years, or when revenue drops off the face of the earth, which after they spent a lot of money and then it all of a sudden took a nosedive in the 90s recession, and they were like, okay, we have to have a constant stream of revenue, but we need to find a way that we can get revenue going in the right direction, as well as the spending, and the spending cap is a big deal, because this is what the people are really looking at and saying, well, how do we stop this? How do we get people, every time we raise the rates of taxes, it seems like we're spending more. Take it for granted, there are some things that I agree need to be spent on, transportation being one of them. And I look at the budget now, and it comes in one side and it goes out the other. So they have a 0.5% sales tax that they're going to dedicate to the transportation fund, but some of the money that they said they originally were going to put into the transportation fund going into the general fund now. Is that how that's working?
Well, the proposal that has passed is that right now your sales tax is 6.35%. So 0.1% of it is now going to go, this is the whole property tax relief. And I use that term in quotes because I don't believe it's going to give anybody relief at the end of the day, but what it will do is all that 0.1%, so every time you buy something, whatever it is, and you pay your 6.35%, 0.1% of that will go to Hartford, which is never safe for any money to go, just to start. And it's part of the municipal revenue sharing account. Now, and then that money up there will then be distributed to places throughout the state. And as far as the property tax goes, right now, in the first year, it'll be capped at 32 mills each town, and in the second year, it'll be 29.6.
Now, is that just for my auto, or is that for my real estate too?
No, auto.
Just autos.
Auto.
Yep.
So this has got nothing to do with
Right.
real estate and municipalities. This is strictly just auto.
Right, but if you remember back to our original conversation about don't ever trust the state
Yeah.
to say you'll give us more money and we'll give it back to you, and we use the examples of, income tax never goes away. Hospitals will be the first ones to explain to you very, very carefully how they gave us more money and they barely get any of it back. We had this municipal sharing revenue account 3 years ago where we said a percentage. That's when our sales tax was 6.25, and we said we're going to increase to 6.35, but that 0.10 is going to do the same thing. It's going to go into an area, and you'll all get it back. Well, we stopped that. We got rid of it because it didn't work. Because we couldn't. Now it's what amazes me, and maybe I'm just naive, I'm not getting it here, but we're replacing one program that didn't work with almost the same exact
thing.
program that's
Isn't that
also
what
not
we do?
working, and they're saying
know
it's
it.
property tax reform,
Right.
when based on our calculations, there's only 2.4% of the property taxes the people in this state pay that are going back to the towns. What kind of reform is that? I would suggest, an idea and a plan where we say whatever town we're in Seymour now, that whatever sales tax Seymour gets, then they should be able to keep. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of details involved.
I was just going to say, but I see what you're saying.
The point
it could be done.
Nothing ever goes back to anybody.
No.
Let's start out
Right.
with that from the beginning. And it's just like I think you're talking about the transportation strategy. I mean, the transportation funding, right?
Yeah.
This whole lockbox idea. I like the idea of it, but that's basically telling people, listen, we don't trust ourselves. So why don't you just tie our hands right now, and we'll call it a lockbox, so we can't touch that money. I mean, money is in pools all over our state budget.
And it gets swept pretty quick.
Well, that's because of our policies, right? Mm-hmm. And now we're facing a $3 billion deficit for the next 2 years. So our next fiscal year starts July 1st, 2015, and will end June 30th, 2017. So that's our budget now. Let's just go back 4 years. We were facing a $3.5 billion deficit 4 years ago, and we did this budget last time. And Governor said, I have to do this. I'm going to give you the biggest tax increase in the state's history, but it's going to be shared sacrifice. If you will agree to pay for these extra taxes, I will do certain things. I will consolidate. I will streamline. I will make government more efficient. I will find savings from state employee unions. Not take things away from them that they're supposed to get, but just let's find efficiencies.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's 4 years later now. There's over $500 million of that money that he hasn't found. Once again, another promise he's made. That's why it's difficult to make promises, because you don't know if you can keep them. And now we're facing, so that was supposed to fix the problem. If you remember during the campaign, what did we hear?
No new taxes.
Well, not just no new taxes, but he told us, and I almost believed him because he was so convincing, that we are going down the right road. We're fiscally prospering. Our financial situation is exactly where we need it to be. We're on the road to recovery, and we're prospering, no less. Prospering when every organization, every financial nonpartisan organization said we're facing a $3 billion deficit for the next 2 years. And what's worse than that, as bad, if anything could be worse, is the 2 years after that we're facing a $1.5 billion deficit. You realize that? The 2 years after. And that's assuming nothing changes, which it always does.
Of course.
And by the way, we're facing a deficit right now, this moment, today, this fiscal year, 2015, that's ending in 2 weeks. So where does it end? It just seems like these are Band-Aids to the problem, and they never work. We need to figure out a different way to do it.
Some of the things that we certainly look at are some of the pension plans that are out there, and some of the bargaining that was done back in the day.
A long time ago.
When we had money, and people were willing to spend when we had the money, and they gave people pensions that are
Sweetheart deals.
out of line.
And
They're out of
defined
line
benefit
with
plans
reality.
too.
Yeah.
Defined benefit
Yeah,
plans,
yes.
and that's another thing we suggested in our budget.
Oh,
That we need to, we need to move away from that.
my other area is really angry with Department of Education, high dollar people that are incompetent that we have in government that we don't seem to get rid of. And instead of getting rid of them, we give them promotions
money.
and we give them more money. It's outrageous what we do. I mean, there's a whole administration there that is mismanaged and costs tons of money, and they try to hurt the little person that's doing the jobs hands-on and everything else, and these administrators are absolutely not worth what they're getting paid. And there doesn't seem to be a way to get rid of them. And if it's my unions that are part of the problem, I don't believe that. They're at administrative level. That should we got a lot of waste, and maybe that's why I was looking towards a Republican man coming in, to who I favored. Okay, and I believe the Republican Party shot themselves in the foot. That's my belief. But I really like the Republican guy that did not.
John McCain.
I loved him. I loved his father, and he may be more conservative than the father, but and I was disappointed in that. I would have voted for him. I would have voted for him.
As was I.
Against Danny.
He would be governor now.
Yeah, I think so.
I think he would have been.
I think he would have been too. And I knew his plan. I understood a lot of the stuff that he would have gone after. He might have been a one-term governor, but he would have affected the state and the fiscal responsibility of this state. And that's what has to happen. I mean, when you say people are getting, got to tighten up our belt and everything, it seems to me every time they say that, I deal with marginalized. It's marginalized people. It's the nonprofits that do the job. They're the ones that take the blunt of this stuff. Every time, and my own party says that, and they get me very angry.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I've been very involved with my nonprofits in the area for many years, even before I was elected, and I am such a huge supporter and believer in what they do, and the fact that they do it better than anybody else does it. And what we see nonprofit providers in all of our towns throughout the state, and we see them not getting any pay increases. And when we're talking about pay increases, we're talking about the fact that I sat with the nonprofit association of the state of Connecticut a few months back, and they're saying how some of their employees have to go on Husky. And because they're making
food stamps.
They're making so little. But what happens is the state swoops in, the state agencies, and they hire these people away because they do it better, they do it more efficiently, and they put them on our Cadillac health care plans, pension plans, pay them more. And then these people are left in the situation they are. So I know, as I mentioned before, in our budget we added a cost of living increase, nothing extravagant by any means, because we have lost in this society the fact that if you do a job and you do it well, you should obviously keep your job, but you should be compensated for it. But if you're just doing your job and just doing your job, okay, just coming in, punching in, leaving, whatever happened in this country to the fact that you need to be, you work hard and you benefit from it? I always tell the story how my grandfather came, both of my sets of grandparents came here from Greece, and my grandfather Gus came when he was young, and he opened a little market and ice cream parlor with his brother. So it was a small place, and they fought, as families usually do, when they wanted to sell it. So it was the argument who was going to keep the ice cream parlor versus the market. And for some odd reason, both of them wanted the ice cream parlor. So my grandfather got stuck with the market side. That worked out fine for him.
That worked out well,
obviously,
right?
But he came here because he believed in that American dream, as so many people, as so many great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and people are coming over here now. You work hard, you follow the rules, you follow the laws, and you will be able to have a home, raise a family, maybe even start a business.
Right.
And you can do that. But for some reason, this has become a society where everybody is owed everything.
We lost
and,
it.
and nobody understands that you go there, you work hard, you do what you're supposed to do, and then you benefit from it. And that's the society we're in now. And that's the society in this state that's facing, that is a place that my grandfather would not recognize.
There's no mission. There's less mission. Okay, now, we deal with the homeless in where I am, the Homeless Coalition. I have 2 operations. I have a home health care organization that works and is contracted and does service. That organization raises the money to effectively do our ministry. All my ministry people, since 2003, I started in New London, founded the homeless shelter, founded the breakfast program that they had there, and done other things with the homeless. Okay, we fed the homeless. My people fed breakfast program for 5 years. Every single day at the church. We got a little stipend from First Church. Reverend Hammond and I started that program. We were doing we were like a traveling show with the shelter, because we'd go to churches and stuff like that. And then they decided to build an agency. Okay, and all our people were volunteer. In ministry stuff, I don't use anybody that gets paid outside of the, maybe your attorney or your accountant people. Outside of that, everybody's was volunteer and stuff like that. And again, one is a business, one is a nonprofit. And effectively did a lot of stuff, and then a group, like everything happens, decided, let's build an agency. Let's go after the money. And homelessness, I don't believe, should be an agency. You try to work your way out of the business. It's not a business to be sustained. It's a business to be worked out of. And that becomes the problem with the philosophies of what you're doing, how you work in it, and it gets... It's just the way I believe. I mean, some people just don't do the job. They go into education. You're in there as a teacher. Okay, well, it's really good as you're in a teacher and stuff like that. But you get into administration, all of a sudden you need 3 secretaries and a bunch of people when, the job had one. You're taking your friends along, and these agencies just expand and expand at a cost to who?
Society.
To society. And it really is. It's outrageous, and we're a runaway society in doing this stuff, and nobody seems to be able to put on the brakes. Yeah, okay, and the brakes need to be put on, and we have a certain population that needs to be taken care of. They're not going to take care of themselves. They're uneducated. There's no jobs and no hope for them. There's even when we talk about creating jobs, it's really, really, it's really outrageous. He's in France. He can't keep anything here, and he's over there in France. Tell him then what? I mean, that's what bothers me. I don't know what he's telling them over there. So, and I'm a Democrat.
I know, he's your friend, as you said.
Yeah.
But it's beyond France. Governor Malloy has been all over the country all session, and I do not begrudge him getting involved in Democrat Governors Association activities. I know we've had former Republican governors that were involved in Republican Governors Association activities, but those are secondary. Okay, those are secondary. He got elected by the people of this state, albeit by a very small margin, and albeit because he didn't have a strong opponent, but he got elected, and he is the governor of this state, and this is his priority. He needs to be here and figure out what we're going to do to fix this. And he hasn't been. And then last Friday, most of you saw him come out and say, I'm going to put out a proposal to the Democrat majority that I would like to cut the tax proposal by $200 million. Now, I have to say this. Do I believe that's going in the right direction? No question about it. But when you have a $2 billion tax increase and you're saying, you know what, I'm going to cut it by $200 million. So that means you think it's okay to have a $1.8 billion tax increase? Of course it's not. Of course it's not. I sat down, I met with businesses, I met with people, and now I realize this is what we have to do. Newsflash, this didn't just occur in the 2 weeks since we passed that budget. He's scared now because people are upset. People don't like it, and it's not businesses only. It's the middle class. It's the people at the coffee shop. It's the people at your gym. It's the people when you pick your kid up at school. It's everybody. People know about it. In my 16 years, I have never seen more people know about it.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
Well, it gets back to the problem. I mean, when you talk about business, is it's structural again. We're giving money to companies to say, please stay here. And I think it was somewhere around between Small Business Express and all the other tax breaks and everything else. We're talking about $686 million. I mean, why not? And I say this across the board is because this is the federal government should do this too. Cut the business tax and then take out the loopholes. And then this way it's a fair playing field for everybody. I mean, I understand, some of these big companies, they're not just by themselves. I mean, you talk about United Technologies, Sikorsky's, and other things along those lines. They have a lot of smaller producers that are within the area that are, they're substantial
Building it
jobs
up. Yeah,
that
yeah,
are included
sure.
in all those things. So having those big manufacturers are incredibly important. But if you keep dealing out the cards, it's like everybody wants them. You give a deal to this person over here, and they're looking at it. And if I'm a business, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be saying, well, where's my tax break? Where's my way to be able to offset my credits? And that's the problem. When you keep doing these sort of things instead of fixing the problem structurally, it's like you were saying, it's like a Band-Aid. Well, it's time to rip the Band-Aid off and figure out how to do this better.
Major surgery.
The Band-Aid always comes off. The problem is, it'd be one thing if the Band-Aid stayed on, but it never stays on. And I don't know how people, and I know one thing people don't know, and it's the fact that we're facing, even if we do this, even on the biggest tax increase in the state's history 4 years ago, that was supposed to fix it,
Right.
now we're here,
Yeah.
now we're facing $2 billion tax increase. If that was going to fix it, if I knew for sure that would fix it, that would be different. This is not working. Because when we can sit here now and look down the road 2 years and see at least $1.5 billion deficit, 2 years from now, after all of this, that'll tell you one thing. I don't need to be a mathematician to tell you this. It's not working.
No, none of it.
It's not working. And nothing is going to fix it in one budget.
Yeah.
We all understand that.
Yeah, right.
Even our proposal, we understood. That's not going to fix it. But you know what? It's going in the right direction. It's giving people tax relief. It's putting investment into transportation. It's helping some of our people that need it the most, DDS,
Right.
private providers, et cetera. It's helping our hospitals by a new configuration of the hospital tax. Those are policy changes. Those are people that help the people in this state that need it the most. That's structural change. That's a good start. It's not saying, oh, I'm scared because businesses have now been screaming and yelling for 2 weeks, and the governor comes out and says, okay, we'll cut it by $200 million. That's offensive to me. That's offensive to me as a citizen of this state. It should be offensive to everybody.
Well, the complication is everybody does not understand what's happening to us. I don't think everybody understands the kind of crisis situations we're in. I think, infrastructurally, where we are. I mean, when people talk about the bridges, I mean, they're going to wait until something disastrous to happen, and how much money all that stuff is with our roads, with our trains, with all the stuff that needs to be done. We need to do that. But we need an honest plan. We need an honest plan that is bipartisan. Okay, and the only way it can be bipartisan is you got to be at the table. Okay, you can't be bipartisan if you don't have the other party at the table, and that's what we're doing, and we've and that's a shame. I mean, that's
Interesting story about that. In February, when my colleagues in the House and Senate, we put out our transportation plan, and it was, approximately $30 billion over 30-something years, and a solid investment in transportation, as we all agree. Listen, we all agree we need to invest in transportation, but what it's like is saying you live in an apartment, you're a newly married couple, and you're going to have a child. So you've now grown out of that apartment, so you go look for a home. And you look for a home that has enough room for the family you want. You want to grow it, at least from what you know now, but is affordable. So it's the difference between buying a $150,000 or $200,000 home that you can afford the mortgage and you have enough room versus buying $1 million home that, yes, of course, it will give you more room, but not any more, but too much room than you need that you will not be able to afford and that you cannot pay for the rest of your life. That will affect your life fiscally, your children's life fiscally. This is like saying to your kids, you know what? You're going to take over my mortgage now. You're 10 years old, but you're going to take over my mortgage, and you're going to pay that now for the rest of your life. I know it's not fair, but that's just the way it goes. That's what we're doing to the people in this state. So when we came out with that transportation plan, it went to exactly what you're saying. We have, I believe, 15 or 20% of all bridges in this state that are in disrepair that need to be fixed.
Yeah.
So how can we say, you know what, I have a great idea. Let's expand 95 from the New York state line to the Rhode Island state line. That's a great idea. Is it not a good idea? I think a lot of ideas are good. Can we afford them? No. But you know what we need to do? We need to fix those darn bridges.
Fix the bridges. Fix the bridges
we need to
first.
fix those bridges, and we can do it in a way we can afford it. So I want to go and buy 10 cars. I like 10 cars because I'm a car lover. But I can't afford 10 cars. Yeah. So I buy one car that I can afford. Exactly. It's not about what I want, or it's not what I think is a good idea. It's what I think we need and what we can afford when we need it.
I remember it's something for business schools, the thing called Six Sigma. Mm-hmm. And it's the idea of how do you like fix things so that they work properly and can keep on top of them. And one of the number one things that you always looked at are where are the bottlenecks within your business. It's kind of the same way we need to look at it with transportation. Where are the bottlenecks that happen within our transportation? Because I don't think you need 3 lanes on every piece of 95, but there are sections of 95 that most definitely need
you need to fix, but you know right now that the bridges are in trouble. You know there's going to be a major disaster. Every engineer in the country tells you this, and you're not dealing with that. And you need this, but you need to fix your infrastructure. It's like the guy that wins the lottery, just like she said. Guy wins the lottery, wins $5 million. He goes out and he buys a $2 million house. He doesn't understand. He hasn't got the money to do the upkeep or the yearly upkeep of the house. So then in 4 years, guess what? He's in trouble and he's broke, or he needs to hit the lottery again, and it isn't going to happen.
And not only do
it's
we
the same thing.
Not have the money to build what he would like to build. We don't have then how are we going to maintain it? Right? How do you maintain it? So we don't have the money just to build. Exactly. So we don't have the lottery money to buy the $2 million. We don't even have the money to buy the home, let alone to keep it up.
Exactly.
For a day, forget 4 years.
Okay, you could have a piece of lawn right over here.
Well,
that's the problem.
See, again, nobody is realistically looking at any of this stuff, and you're right. That's why the change, and I predict the change is going to happen. That's why people understand in the state we need a change, and my Democratic brothers and sisters are in trouble because they're not fixing the problem, and the Republicans are coming in, the Republican side, and if you don't invite them to the table, that's the worst thing you can do, because you're not even talking to them, and you're just making them more angry. So
you understand. This is you asked me why I went, because I've been to a lot of your constituent meetings. What I did about dealing with the juvenile sentencing,
exactly.
And why I got involved with
that's
it, and what we did. And I took a look at the end of the session last year. I know you told me this is a Senate problem, not a House problem.
It was, right?
I knew that.
Passed the House.
I knew that.
We
but
did.
But the first thing I did was, instead
job.
of taking a look at what was being said in the media, because everybody was blaming everybody, I said, you know what? There has to be something that's going on more than this. Right. So what we did was we went around to
everybody.
To every Republican in the Senate and reached out to them in one way or the other. I go to their campaign fundraisers, other things along those lines. I went and saw Len Fasano 6 times at his constituent meeting to get him to talk about juvenile sentencing.
Right.
And finally, he agreed to it, and he said, "Okay, come to my office."
Right.
And he gave us literally what they were willing to pass last year.
Remember.
Yeah.
And we were just like in shock, literally in shock. I mean, we took that, we walked it over to Senator Coleman, and we're like, explained it all to him, and he's like, I never saw this. And I think that's sometimes
That
the
was
problem.
well, it was a horror. Part of we've had advocacy groups. Well, I had advocacy groups on my side. Justice is a big thing with me. It's been for years. Okay, they were blaming Kissel, right? And I said, "How do you? Did you sit down and talk with the man?" Well, no. I said, well, how do you know it's his fault if you haven't gone there and at least sit down with him? He said, well, they won't give it. I said, don't tell me you won't give you a meeting.
It's also easy to blame the
It's
Republicans for
easy.
everything,
Yeah, exactly
by the
right. I said no, and of course we went and found out that was not the case, and it was our fault because they did not inform.
But it goes back to the whole
Eric
problem with the budget.
said it, yeah,
if you don't reach
if
out
you
to
don't
both
reach
sides
out,
and look for all the ideas and find out what
you ain't
how can we
going
come
nowhere.
together, then how are we going to fix these things structurally?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because when I say it's always easy to blame the Republicans for any social issue, that brings to mind the second chances bill because. First of all, it's a misnomer and it should be named something else because right now people get 6, 7, 8, 9 chances. I mean, nobody goes to jail for possessing a small amount of cocaine. Nobody the first time, the second time, the third time. If they're in jail, it's because they did something else.
Right.
Having said that, I never disagreed with the fact that we have to reform our drug possession.
Well, we were looking at the second look, okay, which is lifers and stuff like that. We're not talking about letting them out. That was the second look thing that we were dealing with. As far as all the other stuff, I'm going to tell you the truth. Letting people out, they don't know what they're doing. I've been in the business 50 years. I've been in. I'm an ex-convict myself. Did
Really?
7. Oh yeah.
And you work for 2 Republicans, so you had a sordid past life. Huh?
I seriously sorted. Okay, I worked for
You see
Governor.
why I go out to all the Republicans
I worked for Governor Sargent while I was on parole. I come out. I was in the 70s. I was. My 15 minutes of fame was the head of the prison movement. I developed unions, prisoner union, actually first union in the country. Then they took the certification away from us, Walpole, Massachusetts, okay? But most of all the planning and what they do in the release stuff, they have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea in the concepts of what they're doing with drugs. They do these 60, 90-day programs that don't work. The only thing it's going to guarantee is they go out, they go back on something, and they cause more problems with our stuff. Nobody wants to spend the money. Nobody, it seems, wants to sit down and do real solid planning where we can. Education and jobs are key to anybody when you put them out to be able to sustain themselves. If they can't sustain themselves, they're lost. They're no whole people.
Well, when we finally, sometime after May 25th, actually more likely June 1st, I remember, the last day of session was June 3rd. They called all the leaders into the governor's office and we sat down and we discussed second chances. And we had been working on it for months, but it was as if it didn't matter what other people thought. And it wasn't just us, it was disregarding what the Democrats in the House and the Senate were thinking too, just assuming that it would just pass just because he said he liked it.
Yeah.
And although the concept is a good concept, the way it was written wasn't right on many levels. So we all sat down, and I believe that we came up with a very good, is it perfect? No, but a very good and solid proposal that we can move forward in special session. I mean, there's more tweaking to be done, but that's an example of how you have to work together.
You have to work together.
You know, I get elected with an R
right.
after my name, and I believe I am fiscally conservative, but I'm very socially moderate. I kind of believe I'm libertarian in a lot of ways. But when I get there, it's my job to work with everybody and do what's best for the state. And it doesn't matter what letter's after your name. Right.
No, you're absolutely right. And especially in social things where you're talking about putting out these type of individuals that have been offensive to community. That's a good way, right? An easy way. And done things in community that have been disruptive, and you're bringing them back in. You need guidance. They need guidance. You need to guarantee that it's not going to happen to the community again, which takes everybody at the table. Everybody's got to be there, you know. I get real angry about what they're doing.
The other half of that is, what you have to realize, it is.
And
it's not just
costly.
about the people that are in the jail system
right,
or the
it's-
justice system.
no.
It is about community safety and finding a way that, we don't have people keep going in on the turnstile over and over again, but also if those people aren't going out and coming back in and everything else, we're making our community safer. And that's the bigger picture. And I agree with you. You know what? I've met up and I've obviously talked with a lot of Republicans over the last couple of years, and you guys are on social issues, and a lot of times you're more on our side
Than in my own party, than the Democratic Party. That's
are.
absolutely right.
I mean, like I said,
It's
I
like-
met up with Craig Minor. We've had hour-long discussions about stuff with brain injury, and he understood exactly where we were coming from. We don't want government take over the way that they decide that they want to run the programs.
No, they don't know what they're doing. I mean, that's the tragedy. I mean, Governor Sargent was one of the best, most progressive men in the country in prisons. Hired the first black commissioner in the country, led the field with programs that were really working, was deinstitutionalizing the, right? Everything's gone backwards, okay? There was 300,000 prisoners in the United States in the 70s. Now there's almost 4 million. I mean, everything went backwards. Okay, the drug war against drugs was probably the worst thing that they've ever done, and that they don't exactly know what they're doing, and they've devastated certain communities around the country, and it's too bad. Okay, and program-wise, when you're dealing with drugs, and you've got an addict, you just can't throw them out in the street. I mean, that's the biggest mistake. Okay, and you're looking at, again, you need to look at long-term. Okay, you got to look at a minimum of 2 years. Delancey Street, we've always said was 4 years. They're the best drug program in the country outside of Menninger Clinic. Okay, so I mean, it's really. It's a tough issue, another one, and costly. It's costly like everything else, but it can be far cheaper than what's going on with the prison system, far cheaper, and everything else like that, yeah. I'm watching my time guy there. I'm watching my time guy. I know. You go through a place. We're going through the program pretty fast, and too fast because I'm going to make sure I'm going to have you back on.
Okay, that's a deal.
Okay, because we got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we have a lot of common ground.
We do.
I mean, it's really interesting, and of course we let you at the table.
Well, interestingly enough, everybody has not only let me, but demand I'm at the table. Everybody except the governor and the Democrats and the majority party.
Oh my goodness!
And unfortunately, the upset about that, I think is really going to fall into next year's election time. I really do.
Oh, I do too. There's no question about it. I come out of a political family. I've been involved with politics a lot of years, and I see that the groundwork is there. You showed it in the last election. It's coming. Okay. If it wasn't for the mistake your party made, okay, with the wrong guy, we'd have a Republican governor right now. I believe it. He would have carried our folks, and our folks are enough to throw the election. The governor likes me until after the election because he knows that
Until he doesn't.
The disability people and the justice people can, have got enough percentage of the vote to sway when it's that close, as he's been that close. And the unions, of course, 1199 did a tremendous amount of work, but I mean, he's made a mistake in hurting that population, and they know it, and those promises are not good. And our people forget that Republicans have been really good to us. They don't really, a lot of them don't understand the history. Like I said, I was with Governor Sargent. I was with Symington in Arizona. Absolutely fabulous men, okay, that led progressive stuff, changed, did great programming. And Nixon, nobody wants to talk about Nixon. I mean, you know, they're always talking about Watergate, but the fact of the matter, his social programs were monumental, and really helped our stuff. So, you know.
Well, you know what I would urge people to do, and I've been saying this for years, is just find out who your state representative is, who your state senator is.
Right.
Go online. We all have websites that talk about the issues we're interested in. All of our votes are public. You know, everything is out in the light of day. And pigeonholing people in the year 2015 isn't fair. And it's not accurate. And that's dangerous for people of the state to know. They need to know who they're voting for. And even if they like that guy or gal that they're voting for, they may not be voting in the direction that you want them to vote. So the only way to figure that out is to get as much information as possible. And that could take 10 minutes a week. I know everybody's busy with their lives, and I appreciate that. But this is important stuff.
It's big stuff.
This is
It's very
important
real
stuff,
important, right.
and it covers your life from hello to goodbye. The people that affect your life in a state more than anybody else, are your state senator and your state representative.
All right. And we got a great, I got a great state senator. I got Paul down there, and he's just a wonderful guy, and he's a great leader, a businessman, knows his stuff. He's been on twice. We got him coming back on. Our constituency knows him. I mean, he's loved Democratic and Republican and stuff like that. So we're very okay. And of course, I got Ernie Hewitt, who is my direct representative, who's terrific on all our issues. He's right on our issues. For us, he's always right there, you know. And we're getting close. Time-wise, I'm getting really close to the end of the show. This show went fast, right?
Because I'm chatty. It's the Greek in me.
Well, it's the Italian in me. You know. Who we got coming up?
Tonight, we actually, speaking about justice,
Well,
we got Bruce Morris coming on our show tonight out in London. So we'll certainly be there to convey that you're heavily involved in what's going to go on in the special session, and certainly willing to work with him on that. And I know he'll appreciate that. Yeah,
that's right. We're with Bruce tonight, and then coming up we have Zach, right? We got Zach Levy coming up on.
Time to torture the mayor of New London.
Time to torture the mayor of New London. Right? Maybe I'll get in a Republic. No, I'm a Passero guy, so most people know that I'm with Michael. And then. That's right. We'll have Zach Levy, and then we'll have Mike Passero coming up, and then we have Kathy's and then Paul. Okay, good.
Sounds like a good lineup.
Yeah, we got a good lineup coming up. Okay, and I don't know. We're pretty good. I know that you're busy.
Thank you so much. It's great
and
to be here.
I know you got to. So what we can do is we can run the street early. Okay, and so. We could do that. We could end the program, and you could run the street early, and we have a very busy lady here. She's got to be running around. Dominic, bless you. See you folks next week.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
Well, the thing is, once you start talking about another thing, it's another half an hour. Then you have to stop it in the middle.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's.